It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. Welcome to our talk show that started a while ago. I don't know where you guys have been. It's Wednesday. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm laughing because of that. Mm-hmm. You and I were just talking, and it's like, oh, we got to shut up. We have to go on the air, and then we have to not shut up.
Well, the thing. This is the thing. I don't know. It may be, this painful for some people to hear this, but I don't know that I can ever retire because of that. I mean, if I were, let's say I was retired, if I was your age, Gary, the way past retirement age, going over all of my life's regrets and all that in the kitchen while I was making a sandwich because I can't afford Big Sandwich because, they own the sandwich market. They have a monopoly on bread and meat, apparently.
Big Sandwich is working against you.
Exactly. Have you noticed I've been bringing my own sandwich since that story hit? That's a true story. It just, I'm not giving in to Big Sandwich. Sorry. But the whole thing.
In case people don't know, that's the whole Subway thing where it was Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah,
Elizabeth
because
Warren
an investment group is buying up all the, apparently places that serve anything on bread, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, she wants to shut down Big Sandwich. But if I were in the kitchen, late at night, making a midnight snack or something and retired, I mean, one look at my phone, I would just have to wake my dog up and say, listen, you're just going to have to be my audience because I'm going to rant here for about 30 minutes straight. I don't think I could ever stop because there's so much going on every single day.
Well, you know something? We live a George Costanza life.
Yeah.
We're the opposite of everybody else. And I think I gave the example earlier this week. Actually, it was last week. And I saw this, somebody put up this one meme, comic, whatever you want to call it. And it's a guy sitting there, and it's like, the news. And he's like, I got to get away from this. And my buddy sent it to me from Buffalo. And this is after the Bills blew a game. Don't even know which game it was, but so it's like, I got to get away from the news. I've got to get something else to get my mind off it.
Right.
And it's like Buffalo Bills. And then the next one, it's, I got to get my mind off of this. I got to move to something else. And it was the Buffalo Sabres hockey team that wasn't playing well. And it's like, I got to get myself away from this.
Right.
And it was like reading the book and turning the TV off. And I went, my life's exactly the same. Or excuse me, my life is not. My life is opposite of that. It's exactly the opposite of that.
Right.
It's like, this is the refuge.
Yeah.
From all, it's like, my sports team stink. Well, at least I have the show that I can. At least I got the show that I can do each and every morning.
Right.
And just rail against all the idiots out there. And it's like, well.
Yeah.
Wow, my life is completely opposite.
Right.
Everybody else is trying to get away from it, and we're like, we can't wait to sink our teeth into it. That's one. To me, I love that. That's why I don't have those regrets that you said you're going to have when you get to be my age 100 years from now.
Yeah, 100, 120, whatever it is. And that's the thing is that I'm just going to keep it. I'll just keep rambling. I'm going to be one of those guys in my older years, God willing, that is just walking around rambling. It's the other day I thought, I'll take a break. And for some reason, one of the Bigfoot documentaries, and I say documentaries loosely, came up in the algorithm on my YouTubes. And by the way, I knew not to click on it because once I do that, they're going to keep coming up. Anyways, I clicked on it and I watched a few minutes of it and I thought, wow, that's unbelievable. And it's, there's a large group of people around all over North America, Canada, the U.S. that are, they're Bigfoot hunters. Nate Bargatze, the stand-up comedian, had a bit about this years ago. What is a Bigfoot expert? It's pretty much anybody who says they're looking for Bigfoot. And I thought to myself, I'm about 10 minutes in, and I'm getting bored, and I'm like, okay, this is the thing. The real train wreck, the real, Bigfoot appeal isn't that stuff anymore.
No, you're
I
right.
think that's why people haven't responded to the, hey, there's a 12-foot alien in my backyard thing. I think it's, oh, no. You want to see something crazy? Look at what they're doing over here.
Right. Just pay attention to the news.
Yeah. And I turned it off. I thought, I'm going back over to the news tab on YouTube, and I'm going to watch something over there because I have YouTube on my TV. I've got it set up on all my TVs in the house. And what's funny is that in the account, in the history, it comes up, and all the stuff starts to come up if you watch a certain thing in your algorithm. And apparently my wife is watching a lot of the Christmas movies that are on, and they're on YouTube now. And,
oh, yeah.
When you pay for commercial free, you just sit there and she can just watch it on demand. And it's, and I don't get much time to watch those. It's, I spend a lot of time watching the news selectively. And for me, that's the excitement of I'm not going to go hunting Bigfoot in my later years. I'm going to be hunting news stories.
Well, I couldn't get anything done yesterday. I mean, I'm like you, and one of the things I have been saying over the last couple of years is I'm losing my interest in sports.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, sports is quite repetitive.
Yeah.
I mean, if your team is playing, you have that loyalty, and so you want them to win.
Right.
And occasionally you'll see a football team that's like, oh, look at all these plays. But basically, when it's 1st and 10 and they hand off to the running back and he runs to the line for 3 yards, it's like, that's boring. That to me, and I think as I get older, it's just the insanity of what's going on in the news makes it so. And I do believe one of the other things was paying not to have the commercials on YouTube, as you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Because yesterday I was completely addicted to just going through the different audio cuts of seeing what the Democrats and Republicans were saying on a couple of things. Really looking at what the Democrats were saying.
Yeah.
On whether it was the Harvard situation or Ukraine, Ukraine versus the border or the impeachment inquiry. And I'm shaking my head thinking to myself, they really think they can sell that? And then I think, wow, this is going to be great. We can tear it apart on the show. And there's another thing that I talk about that we've talked about as we get older. And you and I have asked the question: are we getting smarter, or are we just getting older? And is it because our file is getting bigger in our head, because we're old, and so we can sit there when everybody's talking in the bubble of today, we can go, well, that's BS because of this back here and this back here, and you can just pull it from your file.
Yeah.
And that becomes a lot more interesting than watching a basketball game.
Well,
or even a movie. Or even a movie.
Well, me, music. I mean, I love music. I'm a musician, and I have been since I was 10 years old. And I still love playing. But, sitting down and watching music, and you can pull up concert videos anywhere. I mean, they're everywhere.
Oh, yeah, YouTube's great.
And so, look, occasionally, here's what I find myself with that. I get curious. Hey, what does this band sound like now that they're 90? And it turns out Green Day doesn't sound too bad.
There is a Green Day free concert on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah.
You said that. I think I listened to about a minute of it, and I went, oh, sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
And I loved their first album.
Yeah.
But that was almost 30
years ago.
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
Almost 30 years ago.
I was watching, for some reason, Billy Squier came up in the algorithm, and I liked Billy Squier early on, and then he did a song called Rock Me Tonight with a really weird video, and it pretty much ended his career. And then all of a sudden, another video comes up, and it's him in the last year. I'm like, whoa, what is Billy Squier's mom doing up there singing The Stroke? What is going on?
Oh, I hated that song.
I was not a fan of that song at all.
I absolutely hated it.
But so I've got this weird, thought of, what do they do when they get really old? Well, if you're the Rolling Stones, you just be the Rolling Stones. But unless you're the Rolling Stones, you kind of have to. And we saw how many go into retirement and quit touring. Elton John, Ozzy Osbourne, Whitesnake, all these older artists, they're like, look, we can't do this. We can't be getting up there and doing, just living on the road. But also, little inside secret, actually, it's not much of a secret at all. They were facing massive costs on touring. The touring costs were just eating into touring profits. And a lot of those artists, unless they have a 360 deal with their label, actually get to keep a lot of their merchandising money and a lot of the the touring money and everything else. And so that becomes their bread and butter because nobody's buying music anymore. I saw this thing with Paul Stanley of Kiss. He was on Howie Mandel's podcast. It goes back a year, but for some reason it came up. And they just finished their last show. You and I were talking about it off the air. And the thing is he said, look, we're done writing music. This is a year ago. No, he goes, we've got all this big catalog of songs. They could get up there, like a lot of artists, they can get up there for whatever, 2 or 3 hours, and their fans are going to, show up for that. That's where they make their money. Nobody buys music anymore. Nobody pays for music anymore. They get a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a penny when you stream it. And, if you're not streaming it, you're likely not, and you're not paying for streaming, you're likely not going to, they're not going to make much money that way. And, I'm fascinated about, the forms of entertainment too, because the whole woke thing changed everything.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
It changed everything. And so many things have gone by the wayside. And there are still, though, those entertainment companies or little corners of the entertainment world that are still trying to do the woke thing. And it's like, did you guys not get the memo?
No, but that's the thing. When people say I hate politics, it's like, well, then you can't listen, you can't watch or do anything.
You can't do anything.
Because it's involved in everything. It's involved in sports,
right.
arts, music.
Right.
No matter what you're talking about, everything has been politicized in some way.
Yep.
And so it's like if you say, well, I don't like politics. I turn it off. It's like, well, then you're just sitting there like Putty on Seinfeld on the couch.
Yeah.
Staring into space.
Right.
Because politics has invaded everything.
Yep.
And you talk about you were saying when you get to be my age, you're not going to consider retiring. And I've talked about this before. I have no plans to retire.
Yeah. Right.
And except because people ask me this all the time. They say, "You're still working?" I go, "Yeah." It's like, what would make you retire? And it's a very easy answer. If I didn't sound like this. I know a lot of.
You mean if all of a sudden your voice changed?
No,
like
if
this?
it was, if I was, and it's good to have you here today, and so we're going to be. If the pace and everything that is me, whether you like it or not, some people like it, some people don't.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
It's what your personality is. If my age affected that, my age and health affected it. If I didn't sound like I do on the air every day.
Yeah.
And I know people that were music DJs, back 40 years ago and were great. And then they stayed in radio, and you look and you listen to them and you compare it and you say, wow, completely different because they got old. That would be the one thing because that's what I enjoy doing this so much. And I don't think I'd have any problem retiring at that point. It'd be like, nope, got to go.
Yeah. I remember the day my dad, his last career was driving a truck. And he told me, I remember the day. I mean, I still remember being in his driveway in the house that he lives in right now. And he said, I just don't trust my reflexes anymore. He goes, that's not good for people who share the road with me. And he said, I'm getting a little bit older. And this was years ago. He says, so I'm going to, he said, I'm going to hang it up and I'm going to, do the full-time retirement thing. And of course, he had his Air Force retirement, then his second retirement from that gig. And he's doing great, but I have that same mindset of, look, if it just because mentally it is a task.
Yeah, it is.
The things have to be, in your mind. They and that's part of that 30,000 hours thing, where all right, this is if you dig yourself out of a hole, often enough over life, then, your shovel gets pretty sharp. And so, you kind of get into that mode. But if that mode breaks, that's my process. My mental process is everything, which is why I'm very quiet when I'm not around the studio.
And same with me. And I stated this before, that my mind, and this is the joy of it, because people say, what's the joy? And analyzing it and knowing that you've made sense of something and explained it, in a way, and you did it right. That's a great joy of doing talk radio. But personally, it's that my mind at 68 years old works quicker now than it ever has.
Yeah.
My ankle doesn't, my knee doesn't, my elbows don't.
Yeah.
But my mind is working quicker than ever before in analyzing things. And I think it's just because the 30,000 hours, which, if people don't know what that means, David Lee Roth said that when they asked him a long time ago from Van Halen, are you nervous when you get on stage? And he says, no, 30,000 hours. And it's like, what does that mean? Well, it means that it becomes a part of who you are. You don't even think about it anymore. And everything, and you and I talk about this, you still do the same work, but it's not work because it just becomes a part of your everyday thing. It's like getting up and getting a drink of water.
Right.
And
right.
the same thing about going on the air. Well, you're afraid when you get on the air? No, don't even think about it.
Well,
you just do it, and that's the enjoyment of it, when you just go in and you do it, and you're just completely immersed in it, and your brain's just working so quick, pulling files out, going, well, no, that's wrong because, there's this file from 5 years ago. Boom. That's the enjoyable part of it for me. That's the high.
What concerns me is for future generations is the fact that the generations now, with so many quiet quitters in the mix, how do you ever get to 30,000 hours? Right?
Right.
So, if you want to find something at Home Depot, find the old guy and ask him. That's the whole thing.
It takes longer to reach 30,000 hours when you only want to work 10 hours a week.
They may never get there.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. You may not be able to predict blizzards and ice storms, but you can prepare your truck to handle them. Make sure your truck is prepared for any last-minute winter storms by keeping tabs on your tires before each trip. Proper tire traction is essential year-round, but especially during winter when the roads are slick and roadway behavior is unpredictable. Protect your tire investment with routine checks and pre-trip inspections all winter long. Check pressure levels, tread depth, and inspect for any visible damage or debris stuck in wheel components. Look for steam or melted snow coming off wheel hubs, as this could indicate your wheel bearings are overheating. If necessary, give your tires a warm wash before inspecting them, as snow can cover potential warning signs of damage.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, the president of Harvard stays.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. A few things to say on that. Looking at the inflation numbers out there, and is it time to celebrate? Ooh, one of the things that you and I have talked about here in the past is once inflation does moderate, what happens next? Wages start going up. Wage inflation starts going up. That's what history shows.
Right.
And it's cyclical if you look at it, and that's what nobody's talking about. Who did it? Somebody in National Review did and brought it up, saying, look, the wage inflation is coming now.
Yeah.
And it's going to even be greater this time around because you don't have the labor
Right.
force.
You don't have a growing labor force of available workers. We'll get into that coming up.
Yep.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you want. If you can't listen live overnight, as you should stay awake.
You should.
Yes, and never go to sleep, ever.
And if it interferes with your job, you should quit.
Yes. And leave that job open for somebody else.
That's right.
One thing when we talk about inflation is, and we've talked about how the administration and the Democrats constantly try to not tell you the truth about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that. You know why we don't do that about inflation? Because it's the one thing that even if we wanted to BS you on it, we can't.
Yeah,
you feel it.
Yeah.
You are affected by it every day, unlike probably any other issue out there.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's useless to try to BS you on it, because that's one of the reasons that Biden's numbers are so low, is everybody knows he's not telling you the truth.
Right.
On it. The entire thing where you see the mainstream media when they'll say things like inflation is down, and we say, no, you have to be precise on this. The inflation rate might be down, but prices continue to go up, and go up significantly on the things that you buy each and every day. Core inflation, 4%.
Yeah.
And that's when you take, I think, food and energy prices out.
Right.
Now, food prices are up. Energy prices were down 2.3%. That helped keep inflation in check. Gasoline prices down. You've got, even though, as we know, the administration's doing everything to stop drilling where they can do it, the industry is back and cooking big time.
Yeah. Right.
In the United States, in West Texas and everything else, and that's helping. And is there a slowdown? Are we seeing a slowdown worldwide that is keeping prices low on gasoline and oil? We may be.
It's believed that in Asia, especially, there is some slowing down, and the demand wasn't what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in manufacturing here down, 14 months in a row here in the United States. So we know that it's down. Is it where I said it may be, is that affecting the oil prices right now? And that's why I say it may be. I haven't seen the direct analysis of it, which is why
I did, which is why I mentioned it. It was I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago, where the demand in Asia, especially you get into other markets like India and China, and where there was and has been in recent years a greater number of people using diesel-powered or gasoline-powered vehicles. And that wasn't the case long ago, but it is more and more the case these days. But the demand isn't what they thought it was going to be. And so there's been a little bit of a glut in terms of supplies. And here at home, prices have been dropping a bit.
From CNBC here, the report was somewhat in line, although I suppose not as good as what some might have hoped, that we would start to see more deceleration on a month-over-month basis, said Linaz Saunders, chief investment strategist at Charles Schwab. The Fed will probably talk about this, but I still expect from the Fed they're still going to give you. And I did see yesterday that the new figure is, well, we may start cutting rates in May of next year.
Yeah.
Well, that's a long way down the line.
Right.
To sit there and make that to me, that actually means nothing. You had a 2.3% decrease in energy that helped keep inflation in check. Gasoline fell 6%. Fuel oil was off 2.7%. I filled up for $2.35.
$2.11 for me yesterday. It was a discount of 10 cents a gallon because I also needed to get a car wash. But yeah, I looked at the pump, when it factored in the car wash, and I was like, Are you kidding me? Because I wasn't paying attention. I had to get gas, and I was there, and they had a car wash. But, yeah, it's crazy.
Food prices increased 0.2%, 0.4% jump in food away from home. Shelter prices, which makes up about one-third of the CPI weighting, increased 0.4% on the month, and we're up 6.5% on a 12-month basis. However, the annual rate has showed a steady decline since peaking in early of 2023. Lodging away from home also fell 0.9%. Falling inflation, very good. Thank goodness. Thank you, CNBC.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being intellectually honest.
Right.
Falling inflation rates does not mean that prices are falling. In fact, prices for just about everything are still higher than they were before the pandemic, said Lisa Sturveson, chief economist at Bright MLS. Housing costs in particular are weighing on many individuals and families, and automobiles also, the two biggest things that you buy and that you have to have for most people have seen some of the biggest increases. After declining for 5 straight months, used vehicle prices rose 1.6% in November. Vehicle insurance increased 1% and was up 19.2% year over year. Medical care rose 0.6%. Worker paychecks increased on an inflation-adjusted basis, with real hourly earnings rising 0.2% on the month and 0.8% from a year ago, the Labor Department said in a separate release. And that's the whole point there, is that wages are not, they went up for a while, but they're not keeping up with inflation.
Right.
And that's one of the worries now is, okay, you've got, some price, I'll say moderately increasing because, it's prices of things aren't going down.
Right.
For the average thing. They're still going up. Not as bad as they were a year ago, but still going up. But remember that when you take something and say, all right, it's gone up 0.5% this month. Well, remember, everything is based on the increase of what we have seen, from a year ago. Whatever we saw a year ago, the increase from 2021, that 0.5% is based on that new number, which means if it went up 0.5% this month and it went up 0.5% last year, that 0.5% this month from last year at this time is a bigger increase in prices. The percentage may be the same, but it's a bigger increase in prices.
Yeah.
And that's important to know. But now the concern is wage inflation, especially it always happens. You always see it. When you have inflation like this that lasts a few years, you always see it coming. It's something that you have to deal with. Same thing happened in the 70s. The difference is now the labor force isn't there.
Well, that's it. We are not having babies. Our birth rate is at a very, very low point as a nation. Legal immigration is not going to be politically viable and is likely not going to happen anytime soon. And so then you ask yourself, all right, where are these workers going to come from? Well, it's a revolving door. That's basically it. So you have each employer out there competing, knowing that if they don't pay more, if someone steps up and says, I want a raise. Well, if that person is, productive in any measurable way, then you're just going to have to pay more for that person, that worker. And it's going to be the turnover rate. I'm really curious to see where that is right now overall in the workforce and what kind of forecast there might be for turnover, because you're competing essentially for the market share. There's no expansion of the workforce itself, available people to work. So you're competing for the market share, and that will drive that labor inflation for quite some time. I think probably for a generation. I just can't tell you to what extent. I don't I don't know.
From Kevin Hassert, National Review. At the beginning, price inflation is much higher than wage inflation since wages are sticky. But wage growth eventually responds to the first inflation spike and inches upward even as the price inflation is declining. This helps workers recapture some of the spending power they have lost, but eventually price and wage inflation collide, and when that happens, the disinflation stops. Wages are such a high share of cost for producers that they can't possibly cut prices while they're increasing wages. The mission accomplished mood in markets implies they believe that this normal historical pattern will be avoided this time. So the predictions are saying, well, you're not going to see wage inflation.
Right.
But are the data really supportive of such optimism? And they have a chart there that shows it. This chart plots average hourly earnings and wage inflation, both as measured by the Bureau of Labor Statistics back in January of 2022. As you can see, the textbook pattern is clearly evident in the data. Price inflation dropped to wage inflation and then's been stuck there with super glue ever since. In other words, the optimism of the Fed and market seems to be at odds with historical experience. Price inflation can go down from here only if wage inflation does. And that will only happen when the signs of economic weakness are far more convincing than they are right now. And that's the problem that you have. Yes, one might say, but as Adam Smith taught us, markets aggregate all of the world's information that is relevant to pricing an asset more efficiently than any individual could ever. Might there be something that our traditional story is missing? Perhaps. Previous inflationary episodes in the U.S. happened when the U.S. was almost an island economy. Today, economies are intertwined, and events around the world can drive the movement of global prices in a way that depends little on the U.S. labor markets. Energy prices have been coming down, putting downward pressure on prices. They have been doing that for a good reason. The world economy is on the ropes. And that's the part that they're looking at right there. And
right.
So if we are on the ropes, if the information is true, yes, you could see prices decrease, but that would be because we're entering a very big slowdown and or a recession at that point.
And there's the question. It's always the question ahead of a recession when there's a greater consensus that there will be a recession. Then beyond that, it's okay, but how bad, how deep, and for how long? And, that's the concern. What pulls it out? Well, if the Fed, starts to drop rates. I've heard 3 or 4 analysts mention as early as March they could be dropping rates. I can't tell you, because my question is, well, would that mean then they believe we're going to be in a recession by then, or they believe that the Fed wants to work ahead of the recession and create a soft landing so there's not a deep recession going into election season, going into, getting closer to the election?
The one thing that he doesn't mention, because if you want to look at the last time we had this type of inflation, it would be the 70s.
Yeah.
And that lasted for a decade.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, we had ample labor force.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about when I entered the labor force, the real big part of the baby boomers from World War II, and women were entering the workforce also.
Yep.
So there was plenty of
and
labor.
And the birth rate was still healthy.
Yes, birth rate very healthy at that point, and so you had plentiful labor force which could keep wages down.
Right.
You don't have that now.
Nope.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. And I'm sure the administration will say if we enter a deep recession next year and prices come down drastically, that recessions are good because prices come down.
Yes. Yes. And many people will get more home time with their families.
Oh, man.
Hmm.
We'll talk about this. I saw the numbers for the deficit for the first 2 months of the fiscal year. $383 billion.
Yeah.
The first 2 months.
That's insane.
Wow.
That's insane.
Yeah, you're talking at that point. Now, you're going to have fluctuations in it. But if that kept up, you're talking about another close to, $2 trillion deficit.
Right.
Non-COVID, non-emergency deficit.
Right.
Whoa.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Good morning. Thank you for being here. I looked at the long-range forecast, 12 days out.
Yeah.
No snow here in Texas, no snow in Buffalo. Now it's 12 days out. Temperatures in the 40s, 12 days out.
Wow. All right. I'm all right with that. If I need snow, I know where to find it.
Well, after last year, remember, I couldn't make it back last year.
Mm-hmm.
They had that. I mean, they had one of the worst snowstorms ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, I don't want that again.
No, not at all. And they keep saying it, the whole El Nino thing means for us cooler and wetter. But if my memory serves me, and it usually doesn't, over the years, those cool, wet winters that we have, man, almost 30 years ago, I remember one where it was we were just living in Seattle, basically. It was just raining a lot. It seemed like at least a couple days a week we were getting rain. And for us, that's a lot during the winter. And it just was, everything was just wet for the whole winter. And the house that I lived in at that time had a low spot in the yard, and there really wasn't, there wasn't a way to drain it properly because there was not enough pitch to get a French drain to where it was going to, drain properly. So the only solution was a sump pump that the previous owner had put there. And I thought, I don't even know if that's going to do the job. And so I don't mind the rain, but let's keep it down to a minimum.
Yeah, it's been okay.
Yeah.
We've had
we're not into the El Nino pattern yet.
Right.
That's still ahead of us. So when that happens, and if it holds true, then we're going to be in that pattern, wet and cool. But look, if we don't get another freeze-pocalypse, I'll be fine. I'm great. If I want to go somewhere or if I want to find snow, if I want to be in the snow, I know how to go somewhere and find snow.
Go to Minnesota.
Exactly.
Head to Minnesota.
Yeah. I can go to the mountains. I can do something else. I can get there. Otherwise, we're just not built for snow here in North Texas or ice. Ice is horrible.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Just a layer of ice. All right, everybody, stay home till we flatten the curve.
Remember a couple of years ago when we had that cobblestone ice?
Don't forget to get your ice vaccine.
Remember when we had the cobblestone ice a couple of years ago?
Oh, my gosh.
That stayed around for a week. coming in, I could only go about 10 miles an hour all the way in because it was so bad.
I had to drive to my daughter's. They lost power. And they had a new baby at the time, and they lost power at their place. I said, nope, that's not going to work. So I'm going to come get you.
Yeah.
So I drove on the cobblestone ice, roughly 40, 45 miles each way. And it took hours to get there and get back. And I remember stopping because we needed some stuff for the baby at the grocery store near the house. And the shelves were just, pretty much half empty or more because trucks couldn't get through. And I was telling my daughter, I said, well, this is a learning moment. If trucks stop for just a few days, this is what you get. If all trucks stopped for 1 day, 2 days, we'd be screwed. Thank you, truckers. It's, we were talking about the what's going on with inflation, talking about also labor, the labor cost, the labor inflation that we will likely experience, and those are the things. That's the thing that you're not going to see the Fed, and I guess it depends on what happens November 5th the next year, but there's not a way to get back on top of it because you're not changing when it's labor inflation. You're not going to change the marketplace by that unless you really went heavy on an interest rate increase. So if we go through 24 and it happens that they drop those interest rates and then, to keep us from going into a recession or soften the landing, as they say, are they going to turn around when labor inflation starts to hit and go back up on interest rates? And, there's your conundrum. The Fed's always been in this game of trying to create that balance, trying to wave their magic wand, to try and temper the dynamics of an economy. The fact of the matter is we're here because we chose to be here. The fact of the matter is all of this is a choice. This wasn't some kind of natural disaster that happened. We chose it. As a nation, the majority of voters decided this is what they wanted.
Yep.
And here's the thing, too. We talked about it yesterday, or earlier this week. Families are drowning. They can't make ends meet. So the labor costs have to go up. Well, when labor costs go up, then, of course, that's then passed on to the consumer again, and it becomes this vicious cycle. So the answer for a lot of people, well, out of desperation, for some, the government needs to come out with, more handouts. And, wait for the room to cool down past Election Day next year. And, by the way, I think, and I said it, I think on the Monday show this week, I think Democrats are going to start promising something or start promoting something. I don't know if it's going to be like an expansion of the child tax credit thing, but I could see them promoting that in 24.
Well,
more government money to, help make ends meet. Here, the problem with that is that if you're the Biden administration, you're not just admitting that inflation is horrible and it's killing families. You're saying that, we were part of it. Here, we'll try and make good, on this end. And I guess cross your fingers and hope people don't put the A and B together.
Reading this here because you talk about some of the things that will impact the inflation rate over the next couple of years. This is a Reason magazine, the Libertarian magazine, and it was America is taking a high-speed train to bankruptcy. On December 8th, the federal government made two seemingly disconnected but linked announcements that do not bode well for America's future. The first, the Department of Transportation hyped an $8.2 billion grant for passenger rail projects. Second, the Congressional Budget Office revealed that the federal government racked up a $383 billion deficit in just the first 2 months of fiscal year 2024, with interest payments increasing by a shocking 65% year over year. Now, if you've been a longtime listener of the show, when the Fed was constantly manipulating the dollar to keep interest rates low so they could print money and buy their own debt, we warned that this was going to eventually happen, and now we're seeing it happening.
Yeah.
Washington's continued refusal to rein in wasteful and unnecessary deficit spending has led to an unfocused, unaccountable, and increasingly unaffordable federal government that threatens to derail the economy. The state's high-speed rail authority will receive $3.1 billion to continue the awful 520-mile boondoggle from San Francisco to Los Angeles, following its initial approval in a 2008 referendum. The project has racked up an impressive list of failures over the course of 15 years, including an increase in the estimated cost from $33 billion to over $128 billion, a delay in the estimated completion date from 2020 to at least 2033, and a 2022 New York Times expose revealing many details of California's incompetence, staggering incompetence, and overregulation. Should have, because unfortunately both California and the federal government refuse to let this boondoggle die, even with Washington's latest $3.1 billion injection. The project needs an additional $7 billion just to complete its initial 117-mile segment. Each additional dollar spent makes the project increasingly resistant to criticism or elimination, as the sunk cost fallacy ensures that politicians will feel obligated to see it through to the bitter end. The Biden administration is also gambling $3 billion on a high-speed rail line connecting Los Angeles and Las Vegas, spearheaded by Brightline Corporation. Brightline, known for its privately funded service in Florida, recently opened a high-speed line from Miami to Orlando. The project's relatively smooth construction and more reasonable costs put it in strong contrast to the ongoing debacle in California. However, success in Florida does not guarantee similar outcome for the L.A. to Vegas venture. Mountainous western terrain alone would add to the complexity, and they go through talking about all this money the federal government's still spending like drunken sailors, and the deficit's going through the roof.
Right.
The interest payments are going through the roof. And one of the things we talked about is if interest payments are going, think about it, interest payments up 65%. Talking about hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, right.
Well, that means if you've got money committed to other projects, taxpayer dollars aren't covering it, you've got to borrow more, which puts you in this continuous death cycle. That how do you get inflation down? How do you get inflation down? And what are the costs of the Treasury bills going to be? Because as you keep moving to unsustainable deficits, somebody has to buy the debt.
Yeah. You got to make it attractive.
And you've got to make it attractive, and it becomes more insecure every single year. And once you start entering this spiral, as you see now, anybody who buys a Treasury bill is going to want more interest on it.
Yep.
That's the way it works in supply and demand.
Right. Otherwise, no one's buying the debt. And the interest payments on the debt continues to be a larger and larger and larger chunk to the point that you reach the threshold. It's unbelievable that we're here where we are right now on the national debt. I mean, it is mind-boggling. And what is also equally mind-boggling is that most Americans seem to be oblivious.
Yeah, most Americans really still don't care. It's not a big issue.
Nobody's talking about it except for conservatives. Our little corner, and it's like it's been dismissed. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. You know, we're on the track, about to cross this massive, massive, point where you can't return. Talk about high-speed rail. We're on the high-speed rail to a cliff event because of the national debt. And people will scream. Here's what you'll hear. What was the story yesterday? Was it yesterday? Surprisingly, something experts said surprisingly. It was about inflation. That voters, that experts were saying something about the response to what's going on with inflation was surprising, something to that effect. That's what will happen when we reach that pivotal point of no return, of not being able to even keep up with the interest on the national debt. You'll hear the media going, well, this is surprising. We didn't see this coming. We didn't see this coming. And you'll hear it from everybody on Capitol Hill and whoever's in the White House. Nobody's talking about this politically. I mean, I know the whole thing with Matt Gaetz, but frankly, that didn't really even accomplish anything.
No, it didn't accomplish anything.
Because it doesn't change the makeup. Actually, it did change the makeup.
Yeah, it did.
I was wrong. It did change the makeup in the House, the GOP in the House. And it's unfortunate. It changed it for the worse. And now the question with the redistricting and the maps in New York and everything else, that story hit yesterday. Where's the GOP going to be in 24?
Interest on the debt in November, $80 billion. Multiply that times 12.
Right. There you have it.
So now interest on the debt, way over $1 trillion.
Right.
And everything all of that eats into, what you're getting is now they're going to continue the spending because they've allocated the money.
Yeah.
And that all has to be deficit spending. There's no other place you can go to get it, which then keeps increasing the interest on the debt.
Right.
If we go into a recession, you're going to have tax revenue go down.
Exactly.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
It's a common road rumor that it's impossible for one-truck owner-operators and even carriers with just 2 or 3 trucks to get freight direct from the source, the shipper. Yet, hard-won experience from untold numbers of owner-operators with authority disproves the notion. Search your home base area and, later, frequent freight destinations to find all the manufacturers, distributors, and other shippers in the area. Once you get that list, ask yourself if those companies know who you are and what you do. If not, you're leaving opportunities on the table. Strive to own your backyard, to build a solid foundation for the business. For many a small fleet, it's the loads outbound from home that are the bread and butter. But you can take that same approach to the destination area, identifying shippers there and getting on the phone to make sure they know who you are and what you do. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, we'll get to both what happened to the president of Harvard yesterday. She stays, and I need to put this into context. I'm actually glad it happened because now they can't say we've solved the problem and continue what they're doing.
Right.
Now we know that Harvard. We know they don't believe in free speech. They lied about that, but we know they're anti-Semitic and they're Jew-hating.
Consider yourself canceled if you don't listen nightly. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. He's Eric Harley, too. I forgot your name.
Yeah, no, you said it.
Did I say it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You said it twice now.
Okay. All right. You're doubly as important as me. So
I wouldn't go that far. I'm not even sure that I'm as important as me.
All right, so the whole Harvard thing yesterday.
Yeah.
Seriously, when I heard that, I go, okay, good. Because now they can't just
they're owning it.
They can't have a president. They just can't have a president resign and then say, okay, see, we've solved the problem and continue to do what they do. They've owned the fact that they're anti-Semites. They've owned the fact that they're Jew haters. You know, the Canadian American professor Gad said yesterday on he's an evolutionary behavioral scientist also and an author. He wrote this yesterday. If you are silent when Muslims kill millions of their own people, but suddenly you become enraged when Israel retaliates, yes, heavily, to the inhumane October 7th attacks, it's not anti-Zionism. It's Jew hatred. When you yawn when millions of Muslims are killed by other Muslims, but scream from the river to the sea when Israel rightly retaliates, modern-day Israel is a godsend to millions of Jew haters. Oh, no, I love the Jews. I only hate Zionism. It's not anti-Zionism. It's Jew hatred.
Yep.
Well, not much fluff in that statement, is there?
Nope, there isn't.
It gets right to it. You know, across the board, everybody knows, you know, this whole thing about free speech. And I'm glad that many conservative authors are out there saying, well, that's a lie. They don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in free speech on these Ivy League campuses. As you see, you have Wall Street Journal pointed out, Ms. Gay is fortunate she didn't get the Larry Summers treatment. Mr. Summers resigned as Harvard president in 2006 following a no-confidence vote from the faculty after he made comments about the reasons women are underrepresented in the sciences and lamenting the fact. He eventually had to go because he had violated the campus mindset on gender politics. The Harvard fellows say the school champions open discourse and academic freedom. But that's demonstrably false. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression this year ranks Harvard last out of 248 schools for free speech on campus. And I'm so glad that so many conservatives and even independents and Democrats said, come on, that's a lie. The whole thing about free speech, that was a lie. They were lying to Congress when they stated that, that it was about free speech and that they honor free speech. That's a joke, and everybody knows it. Ms. Gay has been the tip of the spear as Harvard has gone after professors for actions not compatible with the school's progressive mindset. In 2019, Ms. Gay was among those arguing that law professor Ronald Sullivan should be ousted as dean at Winthrop House because he was working on the defense team for Harvey Weinstein. In 2020, she sided against, data science professor David Kane when he invited the bell curve author Charles Murray to speak to students. Ms. Gay said she did not believe Mr. Murray's work had academic merit and that the Harvard community could do better to really live into our values and our commitments to inclusion and inclusive excellence, she told the student newspaper. After a student outcry, Harvard did not renew Mr. Kane's contract. The Harvard overseers also gave Ms. Gay a pass on allegations that she had plagiarized sections of her doctoral dissertation and other academic work. They note that their review of her work revealed a few instances of inadequate citation, but found no violation of Harvard's standards for research misconduct. We hesitate to judge plagiarism cases without inspecting the evidence in detail, and we haven't done so here yet. But it's worth noting that Ms. Gay received more forbearance than the former Stanford president. The neuroscience resigned as president in July after reports in the student newspaper accused him of research fraud. He was exonerated from his conduct, but was forced out anyway. Perhaps Harvard's overseers decided that they had to rally behind Ms. Gay lest they appear to bend to the pressure from donors and politicians. But if the only result of this sorry episode is circling the academic wagons, America will have reasons to conclude the critics are right about the declining value of a Harvard education.
Well, no, I mean, this is the best thing about that decision, is that if she were removed, nothing at Harvard is going to change.
Right.
You know, what people may not know is that the soon to be former president there at UPenn will still be a member of the faculty. She's still going to be employed there. The mindset's not going to change. She may no longer be president, but, all right, tell me where there's going to be redirection. And I understand, Stefanik, because she's looking for that political win, and I guess in part maybe she got it. I don't know. That'll be measured down the road. We'll see. And I don't think there's anything wrong with her calling for these presidents to step down, but that's just like taking essentially the, top layer of the icing off of the cake, saying, see, we changed the entire cake.
No, they did. We've talked about this. We've talked about the Democratic Party and identity politics. Yeah. Well, if identity politics is mainstream of the Democratic Party, which it is.
Yeah.
In fact, they had a debate, the Democrats, when Tim Ryan ran against Nancy Pelosi. Mm-hmm. That was the debate.
Right.
We've got to stop the identity politics, which is what? You judge people as groups and not individuals. Well, my God, you talk about the insane liberalism, the Marxism, in essence, that permeates the faculty mm-hmm. and those in management at Ivy League schools.
Yeah.
And you've got the utmost in intolerance, racism.
Yeah. Radicalism.
Anti-Semitism.
Yeah. They're radicals to the bone.
Marxism.
Yep.
And now Jew-hating.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I did like the meme that was out there. You could see the gates of a concentration camp.
Mm.
German concentration camp, and it said, it all depends on the context. And
that's exactly
right
what she was saying to Stefanik.
Yeah. And so, to me, the pressure will keep up because they can't hide behind the fact that we made her resign. And eventually, the left is not going to back off. They believe in anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
They believe in Jewish hatred.
Right.
They believe that you judge people by the groups that they're in. The identity. They're about identity politics. They want to understand what they wish to do. They wish to do science. It doesn't matter. A man can be a woman because a man says so.
Mm-hmm.
The new feminism is men defining women. This is how insane they are.
Well, you know, it's
and this is how radical they are at Ivy League colleges and at Harvard today.
And certainly I don't want to throw all the students under the bus, and graduates under the bus. And in fact, we're seeing many of those.
That's why I said management and professors.
Well, yeah, I wasn't speaking to what you were saying.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so now when someone walks up and says, "Oh, yeah, I went to Harvard Law," my next question would be, well, are you going to run for Attorney General of the state of New York? This is how radicals are made.
Yep.
This is where radicals are made. This is nothing changes at UPenn. A name changes on a door. That's it. Nothing changes at Harvard at all. In fact, this is the defiance that was on full display that very day.
Yep.
We don't care about your $1 billion, this massive drain of cash in donations. We'll make it up with radicals down the road. I'm sure Soros has already been on the phone with them. This is just, quite frankly, this is exactly where we are, and unless Harvard was going to come in and go, listen, we're clearing out all the offices. We're going to start fresh, and that was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. We are in a place right now, and we've been saying this since October 7th. Radicals, and on the other side, everybody else. And the radicals are running the campuses, and they have been for a long time, and that's not going to change anytime soon. What may change is whether or not people, parents, alumni, or even current students want to be associated with something like that, because, I joke about, well, I graduated from Harvard Law. Oh, so you're going to run for Attorney General in the state of New York. I joke about that, but you have to absolutely know that those graduates are going to be met with that kind of scrutiny now. Oh, well, how did you come out of the little radical education system that you've been a part of? I have to wonder, because that's exactly where those radicals are made, and it has been for a while. But this, and this is the great thing about what Stefanik did and how that went down that day, is that we're seeing now where the radicals are, because they are more defiant in their position and their anti-Semitism. They're proud of it. They're wearing it.
Oh, yeah.
Proudly.
Their bigotry. You can now, if you ever, we've been promoting it for the longest time with identity politics, which just says you want the true racism. It's in the Democratic Party with that. If you want not just racism, but you get racism, you get intolerance, you get anti-Semitism. If you want to know where the true Nazi mindset, since it's been liberals that have been calling the right Nazis now for the last few decades, if you want to know where the Nazi mindset actually exists, look at Harvard.
Yep.
Look at the management
and
the trustees at Harvard. That's where the Nazi mindset truly exists in the United States.
Yeah. For Bill Maher, when he said, and this is why I don't give Bill Maher a pass. I don't care what he's saying right now. You don't get a pass when you were the one who said, well, we called the other guys Hitler, but Trump really is Hitler. Yeah. We said it then. The danger of doing that based on lies about Trump, when the other side has been very active in their behavior, and now you can have no question. You don't get a pass if you've been part of that in the past with me.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So I'm glad the board actually did what they did, because the one thing that you and I've talked about for years, and it's now, what is it? Let me see. Do you know? I saw yesterday. Yesterday was the day that you and I signed our contract, our long-term contract to be here. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I saw that.
And last Saturday was my 27th anniversary here.
Yep. And I think it's a couple of days from now will be the anniversary of us. Remember having the meeting when Westwood One came aboard, and Westwood One said, "We want these guys."
Right.
And we had that big meeting. So I just
and it was the same day that our friend Mark Levin had some very nice things to say about us on the air.
And Mark,
which he now denies saying, but
no,
or maybe regrets saying.
But I'm happy because as long as you and I have been together, we've been going after the Democrats for saying one thing and doing another.
Yeah.
That they were always, remember when we started working together, they were still, time for us to move to the middle here. But now it's just blatant lies. The border is secure.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
And a whole bunch of other things that we'll get to coming up here.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
Hi.
So yeah, I'm actually happy, because the one thing that you and I have always talked about with Democrats and liberals is they promote a policy, and when they realize that the public doesn't like it, then they pretend that's not where they stand.
Right. Yeah. No, we've been saying how many years? Almost, I guess, from the beginning.
Yeah.
So roughly 18 and a half years, we've been saying, own it. You should own it. Don't talk like a moderate when you're behaving like a radical. Own it. And because if you believe in something, why would you try and hide it? Why would you try and, soften the language on things? Which is something they've been trying to do for a long time. You've mentioned a couple of times the George Carlin bit that he did, changing the definition of words, to make things more politically correct.
Yeah.
Was his approach back then. But it's the same thing in that's trying to, we'll just change the language. When you listen to people talk now, when I listen to people talk, it drives me crazy. Because they're trying to talk in these, terms of, especially when it's economists. They create, or they believe they're creating, this ambiguous tone so it doesn't go one way or the other. Well, this is one reason why I can't be an economist, because I would be Dr. Doom. We're screwed, because until we get our fiscal house in order, which isn't going to happen in my lifetime, I'm convinced. I'm resigned to the fact that it's not going to happen unless we're forced to do it, and we reach that threshold of not being able to service the interest on the debt. And you were throwing out the numbers earlier on the interest on the debt. It's such a huge chunk already. A huge chunk of our spending. It's only a matter of time.
Oh, yeah.
And as you mentioned, how do you get, anyone to buy our debt. Well, you're going to have to make that attractive, which means you're going to have to keep interest rates healthy. You can't keep them at zero. Well, nobody wants to buy your debt at zero. You know, this whole trick of buying your own debt, sorry, that's not going to bail you out. That's not going to get you there.
But you look at every issue out there, they do something, then they deny that they're doing it.
Yeah.
The border, for example.
Right.
Is the border secure? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that's a lie.
There's no EV mandate.
Right. You're right. There's no EV mandate.
Right.
What do you mean there's no? We haven't banned. We have not banned gasoline vehicles. No, but you've banned tailpipe emissions.
Right.
Which, in essence, is an EV mandate because there's no other choice. Yes, but we haven't. They're playing word games with you.
Exactly.
But we haven't banned it. You said we banned it. Well, you have banned. You have put an EV mandate in, and you are banning gasoline vehicles by restricting the exhaust.
Right.
What comes out of the tailpipe.
Right.
So stop it. Stop lying tell the American people what you're doing. And the whole thing, I mean, trying to ride this tightrope on anti-Semitism. You know, the president, you saw he was in a fundraiser, private fundraiser,
right,
and said Israel needs to quit this indiscriminate bombing. He's lying.
He's absolutely lying.
He's lying. He's telling behind the scenes, he's trying to have it both ways.
Right.
I support Israel. I don't support Israel.
Exactly.
That's where his anti-Semitism comes in, because we know from the letters, we're not making it. The thing is, we don't have to make it up.
Right.
We don't have to sit there. Well, you guys are making an allegation you can't prove. Yeah, we can. You know how we can prove it? By what they say.
Well, we're having trouble keeping up with it.
Right. The letter that, what was it, 400 or 500 of administration officials, want an immediate ceasefire.
Right.
That Israel doesn't have the right to defend itself, that Hamas can commit acts of terror,
right,
and Israel can't wipe out Hamas,
right,
because of the worst genocide of Jews since World War II.
Right.
And it means nothing to these people.
Right.
It doesn't mean a damn thing to them. They're anti-Semites. I'm going to go further than that. They're Jew haters.
Yeah. Right.
They hate Jews. And this is all a part of the identity politics, which has become mainstream in the Republican Party. Now, the far left's taken it further because identity politics is mainstream. Now, all they had to do was add Jews and not really object to genocide. You don't object to genocide when you say, well, it all depends on the context of what you say.
Exactly.
And as Stefanik said, you mean you'd only say it is against your your code of conduct if they commit the genocide?
Right.
I mean, it's so obvious what's going on, but the left for the longest time will promote something, then go, oops, it's not really, we really can't defend this. So let's just pretend we're not doing it. Well, that's not what we're doing. What are you doing?
Right.
Well, we're just saying that there needs to be context. Tell us what the context is. And they can't do it. They get caught in their own lies. So in a way, I'm happy that because now we know. Now we know what Harvard is. You want to know where the Nazi ideology lives in the United States? At Harvard.
Yep.
Not all the students.
No.
Not all the faculty, but the majority.
And that's a real shame for the students who are working hard, actually trying to get a, education.
These bigots, these racists, these Jewish haters, Jewish people haters.
I don't know.
It's the worst of what humans can be, and you find it at what is supposed to be the elite institutions in the United States. And what are they? They're evil. That's what they are.
Yes.
They're preaching evil.
Right.
The worst of everything that we have looked at in humankind, and they are the worst. They hold the worst, most evil mindset.
I can't imagine being a Jewish student on any of these campuses. I cannot imagine.
No,
I can't. I look at the very obvious, blatant, proudly promoted anti-Semitism right now that's plaguing this country, and I don't know how. If you're Jewish, I don't know how you get through the day without having your mind filled with fear. These radicals, there's absolutely no way to predict what's going to come next from them. There isn't.
No.
And if you're a student, imagine being a Jewish student at Harvard right now. And then the board comes back and says, nope, we don't see anything wrong with it. That's the leadership of the school you're attending. You're working your backside off so that you can get an education and take it out into the world and make something of yourself. You and I have talked about it. We'd probably be, kicked off campus for a number of reasons almost immediately.
Oh, yeah. But
over the years.
Yeah, but I would, while I was there, I would really enjoy my trolling.
Well, that's it. But think about this. Think about being a young person, being a student, being a Jewish student at any of these campuses. And you know that leadership, they're backing the radicals. They're part of the radical behavior. And where do you turn? What do you do? Because, you're pretty much in a place where you've got to finish your education. You feel like, I can't turn away. Look, I was accepted into Harvard. I put all this work in. I want my education. I can't walk away from this. I have to be here as a student. I have to be here. What do you do if you're a Jewish student? I can't possibly imagine the fear that goes through their mind every single day.
I know.
And how you maneuver on campus every day. I just don't get it. I don't understand how in the world this is tolerated, except for the fact that radicals have been here and part of our society for the longest time, and now they're proud of their radical behavior. And that's the whole thing.
Well, now Harvard stands for Jew hating, genocide, Nazi mindset, racism, bigotry, intolerance, cheating.
Yep.
All the worst things, and what is viewed as one of the elite, small, minority, elite institutions of education is where the most evil filth is promoted in the United States. At Harvard, Penn, MIT, these Ivy League elite institutions are nothing but evil, racists, bigots, judging people by groups instead of individuals, not looking at the autonomy and the beauty of each and every individual, but spewing their racist and Nazi filth, and now doing it and promoting it proudly.
I don't know how you compartmentalize that if you're a Jewish student. I really don't.
Neither do I.
Because again, you're there actually for the education. This has been in place for quite some time, where I'm sure a number of students go there and you see the radicals, promoting this or that. But my gosh, this anti-Semitism is over the top and comes.
It's not not radical students.
No,
it's professors.
Yep,
and
it's leadership of the school.
The leadership of the school.
There's no protection. And what do? What are your choices? Walk away from that education, or stay there with no protection from leadership of the school. None. I don't. I can't even imagine.
But like I said, I'm happy that they've got to the point where they will promote the Nazi filth that they believe in and that they support it, because then there is no gray area here. They can't ride this tightrope anymore as they've been trying to do.
Nope.
And I have no problem with the government, with any, whether it's a state government or local government, looking at any benefits that they get from the government and wanting to pull it.
Oh, yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Right.
And, if the alumni decide, well, we're not giving any more money, we're done forever. That's just the way it's going to be. That's just the way it's going to be.
Unbelievable day it was yesterday when all that was going on. It was just like, wow. I mean, you're sitting, and like I said, I'm happy from the point that and I figured this would happen, because they're so radical that eventually they're going to go, we can't back off anymore. We have to promote what we truly believe. Mm-hmm. And it's the Nazi filth that they believe. Mm-hmm. That's what they believe now. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. They believe in the Nazi ideology, the filthy ideology of Nazism.
Yep.
Tell us where we're right. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Like I said, so I'm actually happy with the decision that Harvard made to keep her on, because it keeps it in the news now. It keeps the anti-Semitism, the Nazi mindset that is just embedded in Harvard, in many of the professors and the leadership of Harvard. It keeps it going, and it needs to keep going, because we've seen how it works. The president resigns, and then it's like, okay, we're really working on doing this because the president was forced out because of it. And I want them to be honest about where they actually stand. Even if they'll lie, for example, when they talked the other day, and all three of them lied to Congress when they said this was about a free speech issue.
Right.
It wasn't about free speech, because they don't practice free speech.
No.
And it's not about free speech. This isn't about the government punishing you for speech.
Right.
These are a code, and they knew it. Code of conduct is completely outside the parameters of freedom of speech, which is the government punishing you for saying something, or the government preventing you from saying something.
Right. Now, they will come after you, if you're on campus and you're wearing a MAGA hat and, Make America Great Again. Of course, that is a clear violation. This is exactly what people right now are concerned with. That if you apply it anywhere else, as a society, we see it for what it is. It is radical hatred.
Yeah.
And it is not to be tolerated.
It's hate. You want hate? You want examples of hate? We've seen it now. And it's come out in the form of anti-Semitism and Jewish people hatred.
Yeah.
That's where it's come. And it's absolutely crystal clear.
Yep.
And, they try to, and Biden's one of the ones perfect, that tries to write it. We support Israel. They need to stop their indiscriminate bombing. That's a lie.
Yeah,
and
behind closed doors or at a private fundraiser.
Right, exactly. So he's lying in order to keep, that portion of the Democratic Party. We're talking about the anti-Semites that we know exist. How do we know? We know they exist in his administration by the hundreds and the hundreds, because they wrote a letter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They wrote a memo on it, so we know.
I was waiting for him to, for it to come out where he was at that fundraiser saying the Israelis cling to their God and their guns.
Oh.
That's exactly the mindset. And I make the joke because it goes back to Obama, who was, I believe, also at a fundraiser and had said that, and about the people of Pennsylvania. But that's their mindset. when they get when they're in front of what they believe is a friendly crowd, they're going to talk about how they really talk, how they really feel, how they really think. And the anti-Semitism goes all the way up through the White House, all the way through the person that is the president. There's a long history with Joe Biden and his bigotry. We know how his mind works when it's working. We know who he is. And if you refuse to acknowledge that, well, you're choosing to wear blinders. The radicals are out there promoting their radical ideas and behavior, and now to the point of the anti-Semitism that they proudly promote and have been now since October 7th. As a society, we don't tolerate that. We don't like bigotry. We don't like that at all. But the left, they thrive on it. It's everything for the Democratic Party.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our app today, our Red Eye Radio app, and you can listen to our show, which magically goes into podcast form.
That's right.
In just a few minutes after the show. So you can listen anytime during the day.
It's just sitting there waiting for you when you're ready.
Yeah.
When you're ready. You decide when you're ready. And when you're ready, it's going to be there for you.
All right. So yesterday you had the speaker out. You had Republicans out saying they're going to hold a vote for an impeachment inquiry.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because Speaker Johnson took one question saying, well, aren't Republicans going to want in the next couple of months that you impeach the president? And he goes, that's not what we're doing here.
Right.
We're doing our constitutional duty. We're following the trail here. And he brought up, the things that they're looking into and how the administration is stalling and everything else. And I thought he did a pretty good job. He goes, going past that, we're following the constitutional process. We're not doing this quickly.
Yeah.
I said because the Democrats did it, and we believe they had a flawed process in doing, the impeachment against Trump. That it is so quick. We're not doing anything quick. We're investigating it. This is part of all the suspicion of all this money and where it went. And as you've seen, the Biden Justice Department. Now what they're doing with Hunter Biden, and we know money went to Joe.
Yeah.
Now, I did hear somebody tweeted, I think, to me that somebody's used the Joe just loves his family. Well, where we are now with the media is Joe loves his family, and his family hates him and uses him.
Yeah, apparently none of them
because
care about him or his job, his career,
or his legacy as president of the United States, because the fallback position of the media, I don't think the media even knows that's what they're communicating. But when they're still ignoring everything that's gone on and simply saying Joe just loves his family, Joe just loves his family, and these were loans, but it's where the money came from, and what business the Bidens were in. You notice how every single Democrat completely ignores what business the Bidens were in.
Right.
And when it gets down to it, they'll say, well, Hunter was selling the illusion of influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so you take that a little bit further. You say, okay, so the illusion of influence, huh? So what Hunter was doing for a period of what? How long? How long does this go on for? 11, 12 years? That for a period of 11 or 12 years, Hunter was out there while Joe was vice president, all the way through maybe even when he was, president for a little bit.
Right.
I'm not sure if it ended there or not. We don't know. But at least 10, 11 years, a decade, this is what they want you to believe, he was out there telling foreign governments and foreign companies tied to foreign governments that are adversaries of the United States that I can get my father to do stuff for you if you give me money.
Yeah.
And then he created, along with the brothers apparently, a labyrinth of fake corporations and bank accounts to move all this money to go and enrich by the tens of millions of dollars all these members of the Biden family. Which means, for example, I know I would, and Eric, I'm sure you would, if all of a sudden there was a bank account set up for me by my family and hundreds of thousands of dollars starting to appear in it, I probably would ask, where is this money coming from?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's coming from Hunter. Why is Hunter giving me money?
Well, I mean, anyone, by the way, you hit on something, because any parent, once your children reach adolescence, and if it happens, like they come home with something new that they bought, right, where, they're trying to save up for a car, or maybe they have a car payment, or they have some other obligation. All of a sudden they show up with something, out of the blue. It's like, where did you get the money for that? You're supposed to be, whatever it is, saving for college. You're supposed to be, where did you get the money? I mean, the smallest things. You don't get a double scoop of ice cream. That doesn't, no. What are you saving for college? You get a single scoop. Hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Right. And
well,
so,
I would be paranoid. Because my line of thinking would be, if the GOP ever found this out, that would be immediately my concern. You guys got to watch what you're doing, because it affects me. It affects this country.
Right. But if relatives came up to me and said, what's your bank account? Or we want to set up a bank account that we can set up to these LLCs, these limited liability corporations, or are they corporations? No, it's just so we can transfer money from me to you without anybody being able to see it.
Right.
Well, then I would be asking questions. Well, what are you doing? What are you getting the money from? I'm getting it from foreign sources. For what? Well, I'm promising them that Dad's going to, do their bidding for them if they pay me millions of dollars, and I figured I'd distribute it to the entire family. Oh,
right,
okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Let's screw over Joe. Sure, enrich me too. Make me part of your scheme. That's actually the fallback position that Democrats and the liberal media have right now. And they don't even know that they're saying it, I don't think.
Right.
The entire Biden family is corrupt, and all of them for the last decade have been involved in screwing over Joe.
Right.
By enriching themselves, by having Hunter and the brothers out there telling world adversaries of ours, pay us money and Joe will do something. And for over 10 years, Joe did nothing because Joe doesn't know anything. So let's screw him over. Let's destroy his legacy in order to enrich us. But Joe simply loves everybody, and they all love him, and Hunter loves him. Can't make that argument.
Nope.
Because you got to explain all the bank accounts and the LLCs, and they can't do that. Let's go to this audio cut here, and this is Representative Tom Emmer from Minnesota on what is going on.
This week, House Republicans are going to bring a resolution to the floor to formalize our impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. Put simply, this vote will allow the House Judiciary, Oversight, and Ways and Means Committees to continue their investigations. The evidence mounting against the president cannot be ignored. We know Joe Biden has lied to or misled the American people about his knowledge of his son's business dealings over and over again. And it is very likely that he was involved in and benefited from his family's corrupt business dealings as well. So the House has an obligation to continue gathering evidence and ensure the American people get the transparency and the accountability they deserve. Yet the Biden administration has been stonewalling our investigations. The Department of Justice has refused to allow 2 attorneys to testify before the Judiciary Committee. The White House sent Chairman Comer and Jordan a letter stating they have no intention of complying with our subpoenas and requests for interviews without a formal vote. And the National Archives has withheld thousands of pages of documents and emails. It's clear the House will have to defend our lawful investigations in court. And passing this resolution will put us in the best position possible to enforce our subpoenas and set forth a clear process. As we have said numerous times before, voting in favor of an impeachment inquiry does not equal impeachment. We will continue to follow the facts wherever they lead. And if they uncover evidence of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, then and only then will the next steps towards impeachment proceedings be considered. No one in this country is above the law, and that includes President Joe Biden. Now it's my privilege to turn.
There you go. And that's how they should be explaining it. If you've listened to the show, you know that's what we have said.
Yep.
And it looks like they're following our advice to the T. And also, Speaker Johnson was out there saying the same thing. We're just following the Constitution. We're not saying we're going to do anything here. We just we want to find out and get to the bottom of this because a lot of stuff stinks here, as we know. Now, the Biden Justice Department is prosecuting Hunter Biden. We know, they believe that, he committed felonies here, and that money that he was getting, some of that went to Joe. We need to find out why. We need to find out why. What business were they in? Why did all this money go to all these people? It doesn't matter what the media says. You and I were talking about, I think it was media, I talked about James Comer was on Newsmax and said he won't go on Fox and Friends anymore because, Ducey, Steve Ducey, was telling him, well, you don't know, you don't have anything that's illegal yet. You haven't connected all the dots yet on it. And Comer's like, oh yeah, we have connected all the dots, but he said he won't go on anymore. What are you talking about, Comer? This is easy to explain. If you can't explain it, step down from your damn position.
Right.
This is really easy to explain why you're doing it. It's not that hard.
Yeah, if you can't get around Steve Ducey, there's a problem.
Right, if you're saying you can't get around Steve Ducey, that looks extremely weak.
Right.
You want to have the statement that Johnson or Emmer had, which was absolutely, here's what's going on. This isn't, and I've said this, we've said this about Comer at times, don't get too technical. Make it easy for the public to understand.
Right.
At times you and I have said, he didn't cover that correctly.
Right. Right.
We understand.
No, you're going to have to plain English this thing on the very basics repeatedly. You have to go over it, again and again and again. And that's something that is doable. And I'm sorry, but Steve Ducey, if you can't get around him, look, they have a sizable audience in cable news. Are they still number one in the morning, I think? Fox and Friends, I don't know. But
that's because Morning Joe can't technically get on the air right the other day.
What in the world was going on there?
About that? They couldn't get on for like 15 minutes.
What they showed a rerun of Lawrence O'Donnell or something?
Apparently, yes.
What is, for 15 minutes? What is going on? What's going? I think there was an argument between
Well, yeah, I think they lead. They lead when it comes to the 24/7 news channel.
Yeah.
But the Three Stooges on MeTV apparently is leading every show at that time period.
All the other shows.
Yes. That's
so you need to get on with Larry, Mo, and Curly, Mr. Comer.
Hey, Mo.
And those are the but it's you're going to get that, and you should. By the way, you should be prepared for that.
Yeah.
You should be prepared for that. That's your sparring. Steve Ducey is your sparring partner, and I'm just going to throw it out there. He's not your strongest sparring partner. You know what I mean?
No,
you're going to have to. You're going to have to go in and crush it there, which you can do with Ducey.
If you're saying you won't go on Fox and Friends,
yeah, then
my God, then
right,
then shut it down.
Right.
If you don't believe that you can argue with Steve Ducey,
right,
then maybe you don't have a case.
Then maybe you don't have a case.
Now, from what I can see, from what you and I've looked at, because we've studied this immensely, yeah, you go ahead with the impeachment inquiry. You can justify it completely, and you've got the public on your side.
Well, I just don't know how Steve Ducey's the problem.
I know. It was just bizarre.
It is weird. I don't know.
I'll just look at it and say maybe it was a bad day for Comer.
Maybe. No, there have been a couple of times, when they on the land deals when they kind of went after him. I think that was another thing where we criticized him, and not based on the land deal, but they were going after him for some kind of land exchange or sale and his family.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah.
But he didn't, and then he was, he kind of got hot under the collar. Don't lose it.
Yeah.
Stick to the facts and walk through them every time, whether it's Steve Ducey or anyone. That's your job. Do it.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Coming up, some of the arguments that Democrats are making right now, and I find them humorous that they were making yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that. What was the other one I wanted to get to? Government report reveals the most stressful jobs of 2023.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
We'll get to that. And there was something else. A poll on what Americans think about the teachers union, and there was one other poll that I wanted to get to. Oh, yes, the people that use mail-in voting. Did you see that one?
Oh, yeah.
One out of 5
yeah.
people that use mail-in voting said they committed some kind of fraud.
Yeah. That was huge. To me, that was a big story that didn't get a lot of play yesterday.
No.
I saw it and I thought, did I miss something here? Did I miss the hype on this? Did this blow up and I didn't see it?
Yeah. And you and I have always advocated get rid of it. People go to the polls.
Right.
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Sounded stern there.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And I mean it.
Good morning, everyone. How are you today?
Class. Shut up. Going back to an old Cheech and Chong album.
Sister Mary Elephant.
Oh, wow, man.
What I did on my vacation. On the first day of my vacation, I went downtown to look for a job. I couldn't find a job, so I hung out in front of the drugstore. Then it gets, I think it's the third or fourth day. On the fourth day of my vacation,
yeah,
I went downtown to look for a job.
Yeah,
I couldn't find a job.
Yeah,
no, I went downtown to look for a job. I found a job, kicking out people who were hanging out in front of the drugstore. Class, that's enough, sir.
Yeah.
On the fifth day, class, shut up. Thank you.
I was listening to that when I was much too young to be listening to that.
Was that 74, I think?
Yeah, it was after 74 that I was listening to it. It was a few years old when I was listening to it. Yeah, it sounds about right. And then
'Cause
let's make a dope deal. Remember that one?
Well, is Dave? Remember?
Yeah. Oh, Dave.
Is
That
Dave-
was.
that was
I think
before.
Dave was 74, 73, maybe.
Yeah. Were they off the same album? I can't remember.
Dave's not here. Oh my gosh, that was okay. That was the dope version of Who's on First, right?
Yeah.
That just hit me. It only took 50 years. Wow, man, you're pretty fast, man. Yeah, that's basically that generation's version of Who's on First.
And that was, just so people know, that was actually a single.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a record that was being played.
oh man, it was, still is for our generation iconic. It was the catchphrase.
Oh,
Anybody named Dave during that time,
yeah.
from that point on, it was gonna come up in a conversation with your buddies, including a late friend of mine.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just, we repeated lines.
1971.
Oh my gosh,
52 years old.
wow. And we were still listening to it like it was brand new it would have been 76, probably 77. Yeah.
Wow. Sister Mary Elephant was 72.
That's insane.
Okay, it was re-released as a single
Okay.
in 1973
Okay.
and peaked at 24 on the Billboard Hot 100.
That's crazy. That is crazy. We listened to comedy on vinyl. I listened to Richard Pryor. Again, my parents knew nothing about any of this. Steve Martin. Let's Get Small. On vinyl. We didn't. I guess we had 8 tracks. I think we had cassettes. I don't remember.
It would have been in the fall, and me and a bunch of buddies, we were heading to the guy we knew. His parents had a cabin.
Yeah,
and it was like 100-mile drive.
Yeah.
And he put in, because this would have been 72. He put in Class Clown, George Carlin.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Now, I wasn't exposed to anything ever. I never saw, true story, I never saw marijuana till I was 19. And the person who showed me it said, "Look what I have." And I'm 19 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm younger kids now when they're being exposed to it.
Right.
And I looked at it, and he said, "Look what I got." And I said, "Wow, a firecracker."
Yeah.
That's how.
Light that fuse. Quit talking and light the fuse, would you?
I mean, that's how naive I was, and so this would have been, and that would have been, I would have been 19 in 74, 75. So this is 72, and so I didn't even know how to process it. Class Clown. I was like, what in the heck is, what? I knew it was funny, but it was also very taboo for someone with my Catholic upbringing because because it would the confessional and
right
and things like confessional masturbation, stuff like that. I mean, it was like whoa. I mean, it was
and he didn't skip a beat. If you could go back on YouTube, go find old Carlin concert footage, and he was fast. There was no hesitation, and he executed every word. One of the things about stand-up comedy is that you've got to get your routine down, and where you place words is everything. But his were so rapid fire coming out. Those thoughts, just boom, 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 boom. And he's not reading a prompter. He's walking around the stage and he's making these observations, and it's just boom, 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 and laying it down. And I don't know that anybody has done that. They certainly didn't do it up to that point, and I don't think any other comedian's done it since.
Well, until he got, like I said, the last couple of years, I thought he got, I don't know what it was, bitter or more mean. But in the 90s, especially, when he first started talking about political correctness and things like that.
Right.
And you had mentioned that earlier. I really thought that was the top of his career. Now, the thing is, when I heard Carlin in 72, I never put together that I had seen him, for example, on Johnny Carson or the variety shows,
right?
You know, as the hippy-dippy weatherman, even though the hippy-dippy weatherman was on Class Clown, I believe.
Yeah.
And so, you heard that, and so there was a number, but he was in a suit and tie, short hair, everything else.
Right.
I always look at it and go, Willie Nelson did the same thing. Remember how clean cut Willie Nelson used to be? It was
absolutely.
oh my God, that's Willie Nelson. It's like, oh, okay, he evolved, and so Carlin evolved to somebody who was viewed as, somebody who was viewed at the time in 72 as somebody who was, part of the. You would look at it, the radical left.
Yeah.
Somebody who was more of a and I don't mean, by the way, I don't mean anything like the radical left today is. I mean the radical
more
left.
of the libertarian kind of,
right.
Stay out of my, business kind of
questioning authority, questioning, religion, things like that.
Right.
But I thought that when he really delved into, especially the political correctness, which is really, you wonder, if Carlin was in his prime today.
Yeah.
I
think he'd be called upon to make comments. I don't know if he'd still be doing stand up, but he would be like the perfect podcaster. I think.
I mean, alive today, not his age, would he be in 80 or something?
Yeah.
But I mean, if he was in his 40s or 50s with the experience that he had, and then came to the forefront, especially knowing what he did with political correctness,
if
he tore that apart.
Imagine Carlin in his prime doing what Joe Rogan does. Well, first of all, I don't know how many guests would survive it.
No, I'd rather see him be a Bill Burr.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, he would be funny, but also in the setting where he's sitting down, because the thought process, in putting the bits together, that's one thing. That's kind of, you're not actually seeing him make the sausage there. But in a podcast setting, it's more of an organic setting, and you see how the mind works. And his mind, according to what I knew about him as a fan, was always, his mind was always turning. So it was always, there were things, observations that he was always making. And I think that setting would have been very interesting to watch him in.
And he was very, very, very precise. When I read his autobiography a couple of years after he died.
Yeah.
It was really, really good because it talked about his life.
Right.
And where he started radio in Fort Worth.
Right.
And so that was fascinating. I didn't know any of this stuff.
Right.
But I'll never forget, I was
a friend of mine's father hired him, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. A radio friend of mine who passed away about 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh, I didn't know. I did not know that.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget, I burst into laughter. I'm on a plane, and I burst into laughter. And I'm reading the part where he's talking about how wimpy kids are today and the things that they would do. He goes, what we did when we were growing up? And it was true, because of the insanity of the things that we did on our bicycles. He goes, we would ride between cars in moving traffic.
Yeah. And
it's like, if you got hit, you fell down, you got up, you wiped yourself up, and you kept going.
Exactly.
And that, you know what that did? Because you, again, it showed the mind of a young male. It's sort of like Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
Beavis and Butthead was so popular, especially with, men that were in their 30s and 40s and 50s, because they look back at their teenage years and go, yeah, I had that thought. I didn't act on it like a Beavis and Butthead.
Well, but
those evil thoughts, those thoughts were in my mind at that particular time, and I think that's how it related. And that, when Carlin said that, I went, we took risks that I don't know if the culture allows that with kids today.
No,
but we
no,
took
no,
risks.
no.
We took unnecessary risks.
Yeah.
And when we got to be older, we were sort of proud that we took those unnecessary risks and survived.
Well, I mean, but it wasn't, and so many people have made this observation, but it applies here, and that is our parents were, look, get back in before the street lights come on. Well, if you see the street lights come on, head for home. And that was a big deal. Even we lived on, in Del Rio for part of that time on a huge Air Force base. My dad was chief of police. So my biggest fear was other SPs finding me doing something, like riding a mini bike without a helmet or something on a back road and doing something wrong like that. But still, your parents were, all right. And even when we moved off base, look, when the streetlights come on, make your way home. Otherwise, you stay outside. A comedian made the observation, we didn't even come back inside to get a drink of water. We drank out of the water hose.
Oh, yeah.
We wouldn't, because if you go inside, then you're afraid mom's going to make you do chores or something. You don't want to go inside. You want to stay out all day long. And Jordan Peterson has actually talked about this.
And by the way, anything goes that time before you had to be a person of self-control and discipline.
Exactly.
We walked inside your house.
No, it was absolutely true. And Jordan Peterson has mentioned this, I don't know, a number of times over the years about where, we are with kids and how we, set them in front of a screen and they're not out there, especially boys, are not out there, playing until they just can't stand up anymore. We would just absolutely wear ourselves out.
No,
if we had a bicycle, we were doing, we were building our own ramps to jump it. We were racing those bicycles all the time. We weren't thinking in terms of, oh, well, that could make my legs tired or, I could be sweaty later or anything like that. We just went full on until we nearly dropped. And Jordan Peterson points out, to the point of we wonder what has happened to our kids. And I'm paraphrasing, and I apologize to Dr. Peterson, for doing that because he's much more concise and very clinical about what the effect is on these young minds. And in those years, children actually require that. They need to be doing things. They need to be out, and boys and girls, they need to be out there and actually physically be doing things. Well, and we've come to where we're just sitting them, on the couch in front of a screen, and that's their life. And we wonder why, because I believe because they're living inside their own head, far too often, and the fears of the world coming through a screen, and then we're wondering why mental health is such a huge problem, especially for adolescent women.
We would go outside in the morning on a summer day and not come in till dinner time.
Yep.
Because lunch really wasn't that important. There wasn't like an organized lunch.
Exactly.
And so we'd be out and we'd be playing every single sport.
Right.
And we never thought about getting tired. But there was a thing of getting out, of doing it. There was freedom. And I look at when we became teenagers, you look at today how kids don't want the responsibility of a car. We didn't care what it cost.
Right.
We didn't care how hard we had to work to get a car.
Right.
Because a car meant freedom.
Yep.
And the fact that I came from a family where there was two things you did at certain ages. At 16, you got your permit and you got your license ASAP. There was no early license in New York at that point. If there would have been one where you could get one at 15, we would have. But we were there day one.
Yeah.
We wanted that. And, parents said, okay, it's time to get some milk. We'll do it. Get us out. But it was always get out of the house, do stuff. And we wanted a car. And I had a car.
Yeah.
My brother and I had a car early in life. And that was freedom. And leaving the house was freedom. You wanted to go out there and experience everything. You weren't sitting in the house.
Yeah. It's, and that's what it was.
I want to hear Peterson talk. I haven't heard Peterson give that discussion. I'd like to hear that.
Well, and I just think it's, it's so important, and especially when great minds like his can do that analysis, and yet he's criticized and his own country wants to shut him down for things where he's just observing the truth. Yeah. And it's frustrating, but there's so much to learn from people like him, and also generations of the past of how we did things and why we did things. It wasn't for no reason. There was a very good reason for why we behaved that way and why we did what we did.
Thing is, I know about Peterson, he would have actually the evidence to back up all of his stuff.
He makes
because he talks about it as a clinical psychologist.
Yep.
He goes, these are observations and these are things that are long held by clinical psychologists.
Yep.
I'd love to hear what the studies and everything and the observations of young people back then compared to now and see him back it up. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous material shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, following the bottom of the hour, here's the headline, and Eric will be able to guess what publication this is from. Biden's Hunter trigger. President feels guilty, sad, angry when son attacks. Sources close to the president say, and then they have why it matters.
Axios.
Exactly. Plus, the survey showing that 1 in 5 mail-in voters admitted to cheating in the 2020 election.
On your smart speaker, say, play Red Eye Radio. And, if you're really nice, she might. Red Eye Radio.
I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. And, hey, if you cannot listen to one of our great radio stations overnight, you can listen when and where you want.
And thank you.
All right. I thought, like, when we previewed this earlier, you said, I thought this would be a bigger news story.
Yeah.
And I thought so, too, especially in conservative Republican circles.
Mm-hmm.
But just in general, I mean, because the survey, I don't care where you stand on the issue, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because these are people that are saying, no, I didn't follow the law on the mail-in ballot.
Right.
And you say, well, what percentage? 20%.
That's a lot.
Over 20%. Yep.
That they didn't follow the law.
Right. In the 2020 election, more than 1 in 5 voters who submitted ballots by mail said they did so fraudulently. Could you say that for me, will you please?
Fraudulently.
Thank you. A survey. That's the beauty of having another person in the studio, having a co-host.
Yeah, the other guy can be sober.
You get into when you're drinking heavily on the show and can't pronounce a word, you simply say, "Could you do that for me, please?"
Take the wheel.
In the 2020 election, more than 1 in 5 voters who submitted ballots say they committed fraud. I made it easier for myself there.
Said they cheated.
A survey from Rasmussen Reports and the Heartland Institute reveals. A survey asked those who voted by mail in the 2020 election if they filled out a ballot in part or in full on behalf of a friend or family member, such as a spouse or child, to which 21% said they had done so. By the way, when you say spouse or child, you mean their child, not children voting.
Yes.
Well,
right.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
I shouldn't assume that.
Well, that's a good point.
Though many states allow voters to receive assistance while voting, the Heartland Institute notes, filling out ballots on behalf of another person is illegal across the United States. In addition, 17% of mail-in voters in the 2020 election said they cast a ballot in a state where they were no longer a permanent resident. 17%. They weren't caught. If they were caught, that would have been a huge issue. In addition, 17% of mail-in voters in the 2020 election said they cast a ballot in a state where they were no longer a permanent resident, a violation of federal election law. Another 17% of mail-in voters said they signed a ballot on behalf of someone else, also a violation of election law. Now, think about this, because this is what I did, because you're saying, okay, 1 in 5, 1 in 5. No, more than 1 in 5, because 20% say that, let me see here, let me make sure I get it here. 21% say on behalf of a friend or family member, they filled out a ballot in part or full. 21% said they did so. Okay, then you had an additional 17% of mail-in voters say they cast a ballot in a state where they were no longer a permanent resident. Well, it wasn't the same 20%. So now you've got more, right? They weren't all duplicate. The people that filled something out didn't necessarily file in the wrong state or vote in the wrong state.
Yeah, that implies that that's separate from the other group.
And then another 17% of mail-in voters said they signed a ballot on behalf of someone else, also a violation of election law. You could have overlap there, though.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Right, at that one.
Right, yeah.
But you might be talking about 35% at that point that either...
That's more than half.
Filled out a ballot for someone else, signed the ballot for them, or voted in the wrong state where they were illegally voted in the wrong state.
Right.
This is why, from the very beginning, Eric and I have said, I've said this my entire life. I'm against mail-in ballots.
Yep.
And this is the evidence coming in. And these are people answering it themselves, turning themselves in anonymously.
Yeah.
The results of the survey is nothing short of stunning, said Justin Haskins with the Heartland Institute in a statement. For the past 3 years, Americans have repeatedly been told that the 2020 election was the most secure in history. But if the poll's findings are reflective of reality, the exact opposite is true. The conclusions are not based on conspiracy theories or suspect evidence.
These
but
are people
rather
saying
the responses made directly by the voters themselves.
Right. I didn't play by the rules. I don't know how this wasn't a massive story yesterday, how it didn't explode. I was waiting for it. I thought, wait, did I miss it earlier? You know, because I was running some errands and I thought, okay, did I miss the explosion on this? This thing should have popped. And then I thought, well, okay, maybe it's going to catch fire at some point. But I didn't see it.
You have people like me when I go to, I'll mail in once in a while. There's only one bill I have to mail every month.
Yeah.
And when I go to mail it in, sometimes, during the day, if I know it's going to be picked up in the next couple of hours, I'll use the outside mailbox.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a couple of screws in this one where you reach in. I always reach down to make sure it goes all the way down. And I've sat there and I've grabbed other
catch
people's
on those screws.
Yeah, and other people's mail right there. Probably
I hate
20
that.
times over the last couple of years,
Yep.
and I've got the mail in their hands.
I always bring the door back down to look to make sure it's gone through.
Well, this isn't a door one. This is just a slot. Just a slot, and there's a couple of screws in there.
Oh, yeah.
And I even went in and told them, I said, you know that the mail gets stuck in there because I pulled it out and I put it back in again. I made sure I told them that because I don't want to break federal law.
Right, exactly.
You know, to me, I look at that as something, the mail to me is sacred. And so if I pull it out, I'll look, I go, oh my gosh, these people, this is their mail. I make sure that theirs goes down.
Right.
Because I'm not going to, I take it seriously. Same thing if I had a mail-in ballot. I would never, ever do any of those things mentioned there because to me, it's sacred.
Yep.
But for a lot of people, it's just like, oh, just another thing. Well, let me fill that out for you. Let me do this here. Well, you don't know who to vote for? Oh, okay, I'm going to fill yours out. I'll show you who to vote for. I'm not sure who to vote for.
Yeah.
Tell me who to vote for, and you'll do it. And that's not supposed to happen.
That's not supposed to. And that's the other thing too, is that it leaves it wide open. A couple of days ago, we got a piece of mail that was intended for a neighbor, but it had our house number on it, and the writing reminds me of. It looked just like my mom's writing, and I thought, and it looked like a card. You know, it's Christmas time, right? So it looked like it was the size of a greeting card, and I thought, oh man, that needs to go where it's going. I could give it back to the postman, and then I recognized the name, the last name. I thought, oh, that's our neighbor, and they're one number off of our house. It's 2 doors down. So my daughter and I, because I wanted a witness, we're going to walk it down there to give it to him because I'm with you. To me, that's a sacred thing because, number one, somebody who clearly loves this person and family intended that to get there and get there in time. And I thought, well, if I just drop it in a mailbox or correct the, it could take time to get back to it. Not that I don't trust the system to eventually deliver it, but I'm 2 doors down, right? But I took my daughter with me. All right, I want you to go with me so we can deliver this to our neighbor. And you should take things like this seriously. But when it comes to elections,
yeah.
I mean, you're not filling out some kind of survey from a retailer. I don't know how people don't take it seriously. I don't know how people, well, because of just that. They don't see it. I would love to see a poll. Hey, you think you should be able to vote online? Where we are like right now, over the years, that's come up. That's come up. But I'd love to see where the support for something like that is now, because people, especially in the age of social media, clicking the like button. Oh, that's so easy. I can be an activist. Look, boom, I hit the like button. I did something good today. The virtue signaling by, doing something like that. Well, my gosh, if I could just vote online, it would make it so easy. I would love to see where the numbers are right now of how many people would like to do that because they don't take it seriously. There are two things here. We mentioned the respect for basically the way that the system is, but the postal system is. But then beyond that, of course, and most importantly, elections and how we don't take that seriously. Well, it means that you either don't care or you care about getting your person elected. And I'm just going to help, this person out with their ballot here. I'll just fill it out for them because I know they think like I do. I mean, I'll just, nothing hurt here. Nobody's going to get hurt by this. These are huge numbers.
I know.
For it to even get to double digits again.
Yeah, I know. That's what got to me.
This is not an audit. This is people responding and saying, "Oh yeah, no, I did it wrong." Yeah, that's the William H. Macy thing again from Fargo. Oh yeah, no, I cheated on the voting thing. Yeah, no doubt, and that's because I think it's a mix of all the above. People don't care, and or there's something more nefarious in terms of what they want to accomplish by doing something like that. And we absolutely have to put a stop to it. We have to put a stop to it.
Yeah, and that point is not, because I thought, I really figured it would. If you were to ask me before I read that poll today, I would have said probably 5 to 10%, and probably closer to 5.
Because you're requiring people to say it, to respond and admit it. So here's my question.
Well, and the other thing is, and the other thing, I think it's more that it's so sacred to me that I would view it as so unacceptable. I just have had the feeling that probably more people would have that intensity of passion to keep the voting system, to make sure they follow the rules and regulations, because I do, so I figured they do.
Right.
As we have found out in life, though, people that disagree with me don't think the same way that I do.
Right, exactly. Well, and you know, that's what it comes down to. But, you know, it really is, I think, you know, indicative of kind of where we are and how people feel about elections in general. But people aren't serious about elections. They're not. Inflation's here by choice. The borders are open by choice. All of this is because we voted, the voting public decided that these people should win. That these thoughts should rule our lives. These policies should be what rules our lives. So it shouldn't be a shock. Here's my question. If this many people admitted to doing it in the poll, how many others were lying and also did?
No, that's a great point.
I have to believe this number is higher because if that many people are admitting to it, I'm going to tell you right now, there are some people that wouldn't admit to it ever, especially in a poll, to any pollster. And I'm convinced you can't change my mind on that number is significantly higher than what we're seeing in this poll.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Oh, I found one poll on online voting. We'll get to that following the top of the hour. Now, it was taken in 2020. The number that number may be skewed a little bit.
Well, because there was consideration of not being able to go out during COVID,
right?
That was a different mindset then. So
right, and another thing on few more comments on that survey. On over 20% of people say they commit fraud.
Yeah.
When on their mail-in votes in 2020.
Right.
The Rasmussen survey on that. We'll get to that coming up more.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.